Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, man, thank you for having me, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you. I'm doing good. How are you?
It's my pleasure, man. This will be fun. I'm happy to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to be on the show. Be a fan of Moneyball now forever.
Awesome.
Love it.
What is up, Moneyball family? I am very, very happy to have Mr. Mark Zona here with me today. We're stepping outside the box a little bit. No NFL, NHL, or MLB. We're going outside here a little bit. We're doing, what would you say, hunting, fishing extraordinaire? How would you define yourself, Mark?
Boy, this is Donovan. I
No
texted
pressure.
you off to the side. This is very, it's very shallow to say this, but I basically cover professional bass fishing tournaments and have my own fishing show.
Give me back that filet fish. Give me that fish.
Just for the purpose that I have enough time to go hunting in the fall. So it's gone full circle for about 22 years now.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, shallow is okay. You're successful and you're doing well. And, you get to kind of, I guess, how could that be any better, really, right? I mean, you get to live out what you like doing and you're getting paid for it, bro.
It's weird.
This is weird.
And it's very strange because I grew up in the south side of Chicago, suburbs, Homewood, Flossmoor, Chicago Heights, which has got a little bit of a rough area. But yeah. I started fishing competitively at the age of 10. And you know this, and your viewers know this. That's kind of the time of life where you're playing little league or you're really getting into football or hockey. And I was big into baseball, and this is no joke. I'm looking at the lake. I fished a tournament when I was 10 years old, and I won $3,800. And I have Donovan, I have a very Italian father.
Yeah.
So a 10-year-old coming home with a stack of C notes, he looked at me and he said, I'm not figuring out this was any way, shape, or form legal. And this is no joke.
Yeah.
From there, it went on to really doing AAA. Basically, we considered minor league tournaments throughout the North and the Northeast, and went right when I was getting ready to go full time, basically just fishing tournaments. I was at the age of 30, and ESPN called me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about being on television?" And I had some tournaments where I was on, doing well and on TV, and I was always more interested in the camera than I was winning $100,000.
Really? Okay.
And I thought it was one of my buddies jacking with me, and I hung up on the dude. I hung up on the dude. And I listened. To this day, I looked at that phone number later on that afternoon. It was right. This is going to date this. It was right when caller ID came out on your flip phone.
Okay.
And I looked at that phone number, and it was
sadly, I remember that. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I looked at that phone number, and I called it back like 6 hours later. And the lady said, "ESPN Bristol, how can I help you?" I'm like, "Oh shit, what have I just done? What have I done?"
Wow.
And from there, it's been 20, almost 22 years of bass fishing. What's funny is to a sports connection in there. I became really close because at that time it was when Mike and Mike was really at the top of their game, and I would take Golick fishing all the time, and it was kind of at the same time when College Game Day was really accelerating, and I covered
Herb Street.
Yep. And I covered one of the, with Aaron Andrews, I covered one of the Chick-fil-A bowls where Matt Stafford was actually a freshman at Georgia.
Okay.
And somebody called me and they said, "Hey, are you interested at all in this College Game Day stuff?" I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm going to go bass fishing."
Wow.
So, possibly, but to this day, what's funny is it was really, I've transferred from ESPN to Fox. To this day, though, it was the right do. But I'll get together and have a beer with Golick, and he's like, "Just so you know, dude, we would cheer for you in the cafeteria at ESPN." They're like, that's the idiot that turned down college.
That is great, man. That is great. I absolutely love that. That's a phenomenal story. You know, you would think that though, right? Especially at a young age, you would think you were getting punked or something. How did they headhunt you? Did they just like where did they see you? Where did they find you?
Impulse is revolutionizing the physical therapy experience for active individuals in Western New York. From marathon runners to warriors of the weight room, we've got you covered. Our cutting-edge technology takes sport-specific testing to the next level. Our patient-centered approach lets you drive your own recovery. You can expect individualized one-on-one sessions every time you're here. And the game changer? Impulse is home to Western New York's only public board-certified sports PT. If you're ready to get back in the game, call Impulse today and mention Moneyball for $100 off your first visit.
I had some really, really good events actually up in the Northeast, Lake Champlain and Lake Ontario, where I did have a camera in the boat. And I think a lot of those tapes got to the right person there because they were starting to really accelerate their outdoor block that was on every Saturday morning.
Every Saturday morning. Yep.
Yeah, it was before a lot of the college games.
It would come on early, about 7 a.m. to 9.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
That's it. And what it was interesting because I was making a career. I was surviving fishing tournaments and working in the industry. And when they made an offer, I looked at my wife, and my wife was, she was from the west side of Chicago, but we had moved to Michigan. And I looked at her and I said, I think I'm going to turn this TV thing down. And she looked at and she goes, why would you say something like that? And I said,
she wanted to smack you.
Totally. And I said, I don't think I talk that much. And she said, no, you're really wrong. You talk. So, and from there, I started coverage on the Bassmaster Elite Series, which is basically the NFL of fishing, starting their coverage and which has led into live coverage, which we do now on FS1 and Fox throughout the year. And I've had my own television show for about 2 decades. So it was the right call. It worked out pretty well. What's weird is, look, growing up on the south side of Chicago, when by the time I got to, like 1990, 91, I would tell teachers and I would tell my father and my mother, who are very Italian and realistic human beings, I would say, no, I'm gonna bass fish the rest of my life. When you tell people like that, it's like telling them, Donovan, it's like telling them, hey, I'm gonna go party for a living.
It really is. I know exactly that old school mentality that you need to go in with your lunch pail, right? And go into the factory and do your honest living, your 9 to 5, that or become a crime boss, right? I mean, one of the two.
There was potential there too.
It was going to go one of two ways, brother.
and it's funny because I look back on it now. That I do mean this, and you and a lot of your viewers can correlate this. There are certain things at crossroads when you're making good decisions or bad decisions from the age of 16 to really 23 years old.
Right.
Look, man, bass fishing saved my life. A million %. Because at those crossroads of becoming either a decent human being or really a piece of crap, being on the water kind of saved me.
That's actually excellent to hear. I think all of us, you go through that crossroads of your life, right? And a lot of friends that I'm sure took a left, which you easily could have followed. Fortunately you didn't. You made the right. You chose lion, not sheep, and you are who you are. So kudos to you. It's a good thing your wife and you're not big MLB fans, right? Because it would have been a Sox Cubs rivalry. I don't know if you guys would have ever gotten married.
I'm a big Sox fan. I got to throw a pitch out at a Sox game. I hate to say it, just not a Cubs fan, man. I'm a South Sider.
Yeah.
We meet in between. The fans meet in between for the pathetic Bears right now. Holding on to hope that Justin Fields is the real deal. Worried. Donovan very worried about that right now.
You don't want to hear my take on that, then. I can tell you that much.
I know what your take is.
He's an amazing athlete. He's an amazing athlete, and that doesn't always mean that you're the best quarterback or leader of men. That's all I can say. We'll leave it at that.
Here's what's very bizarre about that. not to leave the fishing talk, but to me, I'm very a big football fan.
Yeah. Go ahead.
They had the Mahomes thing right there. They had it right there, and you could tell Mahomes still has a hard on to beat up the Bears.
Yeah.
Every time he gets to see them, but I believe what I'm going to tell you. I think the Bears were perfectly capable of messing him up as well. I really believe that, which hurts me. It hurts me to say that. Look, they're obviously going to look at Caleb Williams next year from USC, and I think they're capable of messing that young man up.
You know, there's certain teams. I know what you're saying. I know where you're going. It's half joking and half not. There's certain teams that you just feel like can take. You know, would Mahomes have been Pat Mahomes had he gone to Chicago? Right? Would Zach Wilson, be a great QB in a different system and not with the Jets? It's certain teams that just always have that stigma. It's funny you were talking about Matt Stafford. I'm an enormous Georgia Bulldogs fan. I mean, tried and true, helmets all over the place. And my partner that does the show with me is as well. And Matt Stafford, is still one of my favorite QBs of all time. And it sounds, as soon as you mentioned that, I was like, wow, I was putting myself in that era, him as a freshman in those whole few years of Georgia, and how exciting that whole thing must have been. You didn't end up doing that, right? But
yeah, it was cool though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, the opportunity and just in what regard, they were holding you at, I mean, was amazing. I like how they kind of found you too. I've heard a lot of stories about how people, and not saying you didn't put the work in, but people start from the genesis and they write letters and this and claw their way to the top. Meanwhile, you're out having a grand old time and they're calling you and they're headhunting you. That's really cool.
It was really, I don't know. That was a very odd time because you felt so cool. Hey, I work for ESPN and that and I loved my time there. I truly did. But at the same point, I always had people tell me about television. They were like, hey, if you make it in television for like 3 to 5 years, you were a success at that. And I thought, well, what the hell am I going to do after that? And I truly believe this. I've always used this term. When you work out of fear, that somebody behind you is coming to get your lunch.
Yep.
Generally, to me, what I've learned, if I could, and I talk to my children about this all the time, when you work out of fear, you're very hard to beat. So I guess if there was one thing that did work back then to now, it's just basically bust your ass so that dude or whoever's behind you doesn't take what you got. So
I agree with you. It's the same, it's the same thing of working outside your comfort zone, right? Obviously I have my 9 to 5, quote unquote, if you will, and my wife owns a business. And 6-8 months ago, I said, I'm going to take a shot with Moneyball. It's a very similar situation where it's stepping outside my comfort zone a little bit. Not with meeting different people that I'm natural. I think the big key there is I'm just not embarrassed or intimidated. Doesn't matter who I talk to. You're going to get Donovan Scott, but it's definitely a step outside your comfort zone. You're taking a risk. You know what I mean? You're out of your element, but I think that's when people can ultimately be their most successful, right? You're kind of challenging yourself. And it's kind of like that backup quarterback mentality too. If you have somebody breathing down your back, and that's what you're more so what you're saying, right? Somebody's coming for that job, right? Yeah. Now I got to rewind here 1 second. $3,400 when you're 10 years old. Okay. Because the whole time you were talking, that was just resonating with me. That's a ton of money for a fishing tournament, say in we won't date you much here, Mark, but let's say 1990 or whatever.
It was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. I mean, how did, I guess you said you started fishing when you were 10 and entered a tournament. Just rewind. Tell me how that starts. Like my son's 10. So if my son Deacon wanted to go fish in a tournament.
So bizarre.
Right. How does that?
Hey everybody, it's D-Money with Moneyball Channel. Fade up, fade down, fade all around. You got Burns Barbershop, Southgate Plaza in West Seneca. See my man Austin. Make sure you mention Moneyball, and Austin's gonna hook you up with a great haircut. He's the man over here, so make sure you come and see Austin at Burns Barbershop.
I was known as the kid, like if I turned the iPad, I was known the kid that just walked the lakeshore. kind of a little bit like a beach bum. And trust me, that went on for a long time, Donovan. It's actually how I met my wife. That has turned into an expensive day of fishing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But it's weird. There was an older guy. I would say he's in his 40s. He said, "Hey, I see you all the time. There's a 70 boat tournament coming up. Do you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man. I like what? How's this work?"
And you're 10 years old.
Number one, 10 years old, and got in the guy's boat, and it was more back then. You could call it more of a derby. It looked a little bit like the scene from Caddyshack on the water.
Okay,
right,
all right.
It not very organized, and we caught 2 bass in that tournament.
Now, first of all, your dad would have kicked your ass had he known that you had just hopped in a boat with a 40-some-year-old man to start with, right?
I think it was more my mom wanting me out of the house on that August 7th day. I remember the date of it.
All right.
And so anyway, we caught 2 bass. One was a great big one. And I realized being in the boat with this guy that he did not know shit about fishing at all. And I don't know how the stars align, because here's the one misconception about profession, and granted back then that was not professional fishing, but fishing is very to connect it to another, it's very golf like, it's very mental. There's a lot of patience, there's a lot of endurance in it, just because your main look, you're chasing a wild creature that has other ideas than doing what you want it to do. The other thing is your number one foe is Mother Nature. And for the most part, you are your own coach, you're your own caddy, you're your own pit crew and quarterback. And that's the one thing I learned after that first tournament as time went on, and I won more money and won boats. I learned very quickly that there is very, very small luck factor, where a lot of people think it's fishing. Maybe I'll go out and get lucky. That's very much not the case.
Really? Okay.
There are reasons why there are, Tiger Woods and Tom Brady's in the professional fishing world that I have covered, that are my best friends. There's a reason they're that good, and why they do better. That there's a sixth sense in natural.
I love that you mentioned that. I really do. Yeah. People think fishing, you throw it out, right? You cast it out.
Not the case.
If that were the case, I mean, clearly, it's kind of foolish for people to say that. Now, the reason, I guess myself personally, when I go out and I fish with my boys, and like I said, we were speaking a little bit earlier before we hit record, and I told you I spent summers out in the bumpkins, and I did a lot of fishing and stuff like that, and I don't so much anymore. But my boys enjoy it, and it's something I would really kind of like to kind of get back into, right?
Yep.
Larry Mazer connection came in. He's
sure.
He's part of the family, and now I was fortunate enough to speak with you. But the patience just destroys me. I am one of the least patient people I know.
So am I. I'm horrible.
How do you do it? How do you do it, man? If I don't have something in 5 minutes, I'll throw a hot dog at the end of the hook, and I'm like, the hell with this. I mean,
what's very bizarre about fishing is I'm a very impatient person, but a lot of the hobbies or things that outside of fishing, I hunt. That is what, and I have learned there is a weird, bizarre connection between very, very, very good professional fishermen and hunters. Yes. There is I don't know if it's a chase thing where know when to drop the clutch, know when to slow down. It's very hard to describe, but here's what is strange about fishing is it from an aspect. Look, Mother Nature. Like if I have an enemy at work, it's Mother Nature. She is constantly changing.
Sure.
And that's the one thing that I've seen is the most talented professional fishermen on earth are able to react with Mother Nature instantly, where you don't see that. You see it a little bit in other sports, but that is the adjusting on the fly tends to be the biggest thing in fishing, instead of hey, I'm gonna, well, like you said, hey, I'm gonna throw this hot dog out. I'm gonna open my cooler.
Right.
You are way more in fishing. You are way more of a hunter than anything else. You're playing scenarios. It's weird. While we've been doing this, I'm staring at the lake and I'm also thinking they're not going to be on that point with the wind direction. They're going to be on that point right there. And
see
it's
that, see how your brain, just, you have kind of a natural
constant.
knack for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's,
and what's weird is, Donovan, the difference in from tournament fishing to an actual, like when I go out and tape my television show, like tomorrow I'll be on the water taping, is you're always a tournament, a fishing show, you're always against a clock.
Yeah.
You're always against a clock, whether it's a clock of the tournament ends at 3:00 or the clock I'm against is a clock of production budget of money.
Sure.
I want to get this damn thing put in the can before I've got to pay a cameraman another $1,000 3 hours.
Sure.
I don't want him to watch this podcast right now, but
I do. So
you have to look here. Here's the best way to put it. I can't air television fishing shows without catching them. That right. At the end of the day, you have to produce.
But how funny, but let me interrupt you. How funny would a show be, right? The Ultimate Punk, where your show you go out and just for 30 minutes or an hour, you just cast and I got one, and you just absolutely screw with everybody and you never catch anything. I mean, that might be fun.
I've had that.
Yeah.
I've had that. And
what do you do in that situation?
Cry and your ego gets bruised.
Right.
And here's what's very strange about what you just said is this was about 15 years ago, and I had one of those shows where I caught 2 bass.
Okay.
And at the time, so 15 years ago, it was near the start of my career. I thought, dang it, man, I can't air that. I cannot air that. To this day, we ended up airing it. There are viewers that bring that show up and said, man, I've had a day like that. I can't believe, it's cool to see a fishing show host suck.
It makes you more relatable.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't want to do it again, and we've not had that situation. But
it totally makes you relatable, and you're a pretty grounded, down to earth guy, just talking to you, and you kind of feel, there's a comfort level in certain people where you start chopping it up with them and you feel like you've known them for 10 years, right? That's a gift. That goes along with not so much the fishing and the hunting, but where your career has gone and how you've been able to be so successful, without, throwing the praises out and being sincere. You're a likable person. So, I think that part of it, when people see, oh my God, even a professional can go out and get stoned or, catch 2 fish, that makes you more relatable, right? Nobody really likes, obviously people are watching the show to see fish get caught, but nobody likes the guy who every time he's throwing it out, he's pulling up a 20-pound fish.
Absolutely.
It's not realistic. You know what I mean?
You nailed something. And I really learned it that year that show aired, that I was going to show all of the touchdowns, holding up big fish, high fives with the camera guys. But I learned that year I was also going to show interceptions. I was going to show lost. What was funny, growing up watching outdoor television, I never saw television show hosts show when they lose a 6-pounder.
Right.
And I told my crew, I said, we are going to show all of that.
Yeah.
We're going to show every bit of victory, but I'm also going to show when I take it into the ditch.
Yep.
And I beep out F-bombs. And it really ended up being, well, you just nailed it. I think we're very relatable for the viewers, because look, here's the other side of it. I tape in, where Larry fishes out in, from Silver Creek to Sturgeon Point.
Yeah.
I've gone out there and taped in 6 to 8 foot waves, because that's the day I have to look. The viewer that's watching it doesn't get to pick a lot of their battles with Mother Nature. And those are the things that I've learned have really resonated through the years of, we're going to go out and we may get our teeth kicked in, but maybe we'll take a few right hand hooks too.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to touch on one thing before I forget, because this was one thing I was going to say that I wanted to talk to Mark Zona about. I think the references that we make almost, continuously throughout the show, you and I both, are references to sports, to everything you say. I want to show the touchdowns and the interceptions, right? Fishing and hunting are so synonymous with MLB, more MLB and NFL players. If you look at the bios for most of these pros, you see that their favorite thing to do in their off time is hunt or fish, right?
I've noticed that.
Right? I mean, I've
taken a lot of them. I've taken a ton of.
Well, that's where I was kind of going with it, because Larry had mentioned too that he had a few guys that really continue with. What do you think those guys? I mean, we watch them perform their craft, every week. And I think for them to be able to go out and watch you, in your craft, to see something that they're not quite as good at, and they look at you as a fan, as a fan. You know what I'm saying? So when you take them out on the lake, that's a treat for them. That's like them putting you up sideline on the field watching a game, and I think that's amazing. It's so synonymous with athletes. And do you think that there is a coaching that goes on there? I mean, do you think that, you said you got Mother Nature and everything else, but do you see a coaching aspect of it?
Yeah, I don't know, Donovan. I don't know if it's more of a coaching thing, but if you really look at, and this is an opinion, and I'm going to name drop somebody in this.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, I mean that's
I truly believe sports in general are an extreme rush of extreme highs, and the most brutal dog punched lows on planet Earth. And there is a genuine highest of high satisfaction when you succeed, and I'm talking the lowest of low when you fail. And what's really interesting, if you really think about sports as a whole, hunting, fishing, there are way more lows than there are highs. You 100%. tend to remember your lows way more vividly than your highs and successes. And what's funny is I've taped the show. Like Randy Moss called me one day out of like, dude, I didn't know Randy Moss. He said, hey, he said, Z-Train, this is Moss. Take me fishing. Like you're gonna get that call every day. And what's very interesting, what you just said, I could tell he is one of those human beings. Like even when he was in my boat, the highest of highs, and the lowest of lows. And that dude fed off of it. Yeah. He fed off of it. And it almost seemed like when he would lose one or I would catch one, you would see that competitive fire in him that he obviously had from Minnesota to the Patriots to San Francisco. I truly believe a lot of the folks that make that connection, that were huge professional athletes, one of the reasons they fish, there is extreme failure and the extreme success, and they kind of just feed off of that feeling.
You go into the therapy of it and really dig into the roots of it. I, number one, completely agree with you. And number two, I feel like Randy Moss, arguably the best wide receiver of all time, right? Just chilling out in your boat one day. That's all, just the best receiver ever.
Right.
And
I would not put him at the best bass fisherman.
Listen, he's watching, listen, he's going to be watching, but I would like to see that show too, by the way, man. I would love to see if you actually videoed these.
I would love to air the stuff I'd love to air the stuff that we couldn't air off the water.
Do you ever do that? Or have you ever thought about that? Like a show, fishing with pro athlete type thing?
No, it is not my jam. It is.
No? Was it intimidating having him there, or were you in your element?
Hell yes.
Yeah, it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, and what's weird is, like, I'll throw one other name out there. I've fished with him several times, Martin Truex from NASCAR. That you could tell that dude drives a race car, so he has time to go bass fishing. Like he was a hammer bass fisherman. But the other. Man, when I tape shows, I'm very low maintenance. We're a quiet crew that sneaks into a town, tapes, and leaves. When Randy Moss shows up to a town, the town knows.
Yeah, yeah. So. No, I know. So when you mentioned Moss, of all people, it literally, like I said, that it's one of the biggest names ever.
Yes.
He's not you're not some practice squad player, no. I mean, that's Randy Moss. So that's got to be a little intimidating. But again, he's calling you, just like ESPN called you.
Cool.
So
it was cool.
Hold your head up high, brother, because that really, you know what I mean? Like,
thank you.
Because there is that part of it where you want to be modest and you don't want to sound egotistical or whatever, but take some genuine pride in the fact that they're calling you, and I can see why. You are definitely a likable guy. I'm going to finish up with 5 questions, kind of a rapid fire thing. I wish I could sit and talk to you all day, but I know that you saw that you were telling me that Buck's walking around the property, and
he's going to have a bad evening, Donovan.
Yeah, you got your eyes on the prize there. So I'm just going to shoot with rapid fire 5 questions. We'll wrap it up. I want to thank you very much for coming on to Moneyball. I hope you had a good time.
Loved it.
I'm going to dive in. You've definitely been to Buffalo, I'm assuming, and you've had the wings, right? You like the flats or the drums, Mark?
Flats. I'm flats.
Okay. Warm weather, cold weather, climate. You got to live somewhere forever.
My wife would let me move to San Antonio tomorrow. I would listen, man. I love next to the Chicago Bears. I love the Buffalo Bills, but I'm over it, bro. I'm really over. I'm over northern weather. Working down south. I know this is rapid fire, but working down south has made me a complete wuss over the last 15 years.
I could not agree more. You get to a certain age. I just turned 45. You get to a certain age, and that's it, right?
I'm totally over it.
Unless you're doing winter sports. I hate skiing. I don't want to be out in the freezing cold, man. I just don't,
And the other thing about it is my wife, she's right there. My wife loves ice skating. It's not my jam, bro. It's not I hate to say it, after shoveling for 3 or 4 times when it starts to hit in about 3 or 4 weeks, I'm done with it. I'll just let it sit until March. I'm done.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see you out there doing, in maybe one of those little figure skater dresses, doing maybe some kind of triple axel or something.
It's a bad look, man.
Right? Some Tanya Harding action.
Look, I went. This is no joke. I went.
You're not the Harding. You're the Gulahi. What was the guy's name who took
Jeff?
Yeah, you're the.
Why?
Why? We had to bring it up. We had to do it. All right, next.
So what I was going to say about that real quick, that was an awkward transition. Right?
Yes, it was.
So what I was going to say was I went hunting west of Vail last year for a trophy giant mule deer, and I shot this animal at the peak of one of the mountains, and the dude I was with looked at me, goes, "Yeah, it's going to be a long night packing that animal down the hill." And I looked at him and I said, I feel good about it. He said, "Yeah, tell me that in 3 hours." We processed the deer, and I promise you, Donovan, I was ready to text my wife, "I'm going to die at the top of this mountain."
We could talk another hour on questions that I have for you as far as how to transport that stuff and even the fishing. You got to do one for the rest of your life. That's it. God says you get one. You going with hunting or fishing?
I'll fish till my last day. At least I hope I can. Like I said, fishing outside everything else on earth and my family, fishing is and always will be my best friend, period.
Ford or Chevy?
Dodge.
Who sponsors you?
Dodge Ram.
Good answer.
Hey, they sponsored me since I was 18, so I'm not going to miss that question.
That's a great answer. Lastly, I guess we'll wrap it up. What is a Sunday dinner look like at the Zona's house? What's your favorite food?
It's a bone-in ribeye. It's a bone-in ribeye on lump coal, not on gas. Big, we're a big wing family, but a bone-in ribeye and a Caesar salad and a Grey Goose and tonic. We're ready to go. We're ready.
You can get the bone-in ribeye and the Caesar salad for less money than you can get a double order of wings. So
yes,
that's the way things have gone now, right? I got to give a shout out. I got to give a shout out to Elmo's, who's a sponsor of mine. Have you been to Elmo's for wings?
I've not been.
So Elmo's is kind of a hidden little gem. It's off of Millersport in Amherst. Yes, she does sponsor me, but the best chicken wings you'll ever eat.
I will name drop you to no end next time I tape there.
Listen, let's do it. I need to tape there too. And we could have actually done this. You probably have a busier schedule than I do, although I have 3 kids under 10, so maybe not.
You got your hands full.
Next time you're in town, me, yourself, Larry.
Love that.
It's on me, brother. Let's go to Elmo's, because I'm telling you, they're Khalil Mack kind of, he kind of put them on the map a little bit.
Really?
When he was at UB, yeah, he actually mentioned them at post-game interviews and stuff, but they have a double dip Cajun, and they're phenomenal wings. Yeah,
I'm in, because outside of literally, I love where we transitioned here to end this, just talking about food. And
yeah, of course.
Besides a bone-in rib, this is a big wing house. Yeah. I have twin boys that went to MSU and come home every now and then. Like the other day, who do the Bears play? Got their ass kicked by the Vikings. Yeah, that's right. Without Justin Jefferson, the Bears lost to the Vikings.
Yes,
that's good stuff.
KJ Osborne, another UB guy, got him.
Yeah, that's depressing, Donovan. It really is.
I would put Elmo's wings up against any wing you've ever had.
I need pictures of them. I really.
I'm gonna send you some. They'll go. I mean, Duff. I do like Duff's wings. I met my wife at Duff's. She was a waitress there. She was 19 years old when I met her, and they get kind of a because the more famous a place gets for whatever it has, the more people start to hate on it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, there's nothing wrong with Anchor Bar wings, but everybody says.
But it's the most popular name,
right? So everybody hates them.
Right.
You know how that goes.
They're kind of like a lot of fun. Treats.
Yeah, exactly. This was a lot of fun. And I'm dead serious. I'll text you, a little bit after, but I definitely, wings on me next time you're around, bro.
That's awesome. And seriously, thank you. I don't get to do many podcasts. I do a lot of podcasts, but it's always in our category, in hunting and fishing category.
Yeah.
Donovan, you ever want to talk sports? You ever want to beat on the Bears and congratulate the Bills? I'm hoping the Bills actually get over the hump this year.
Not if they play like last game, man. What a disaster the last game was. But again, another couple hours to talk about that. Listen, enjoy the rest of your day. Say hi to that buck for me, all right?
My man.
Take care.